All right. Welcome to PCA Hiring 101. This is part one of a really long series on advertising. I am going to right now mute everybody in the room except for myself. So I'm muting everybody. And I think everybody can still hear me. Kareen, nod if you can hear me. Okay, good. All right, so I'm muting everybody right now. That doesn't mean you'll stay muted. It just helps reduce background noise during participation and all that stuff. So here's some housekeeping before we get started. Everyone's going to be muted to reduce background noise. Please raise your hand or use the chat feature if you want to be unmuted. And so basically there's a feature under participants, which is kind of in the bottom of your viewing window. And that feature is a little, it says participants, and you can like raise your hand. And I don't know if you want to look for that right now to see where the hand is. So that way, and I can see, if you see it, show it to me so I can see your hand raised. Do you guys know where, let me unmute you just so. All right, you guys. Okay, Stevie, you know where the mute is. Can you explain how you got to it?
I'm sorry, I know where the what is?
I know the mute is the hand. Where'd you find your hand?
I clicked on the participants and I clicked on myself.
Right, and then it says raise hand, right?
Right, and then if you click again, it says lower hand.
Excellent, excellent. I want to make sure everybody knows this feature because it's going to be really important. So as you, please everybody go and raise your hand in the participant thing.
It's not showing up on mine.
Okay, at the bottom.
Oh, I see it.
Okay. Oh, good. Whoa, everybody's raising their hand. Woo! All right. You guys are a bunch of nerds. It's exciting. Ben, you might not be able to raise your hand on your phone, and I'm not sure about Dawn. Dawn, were you able to do it? Yeah, Dawn's usually muted herself, so but I see that she's raising it, so. Looks like everybody's able to raise their hand. So that's great. All right, good. Thank you very much for that. I'm gonna mute you all again. Okay, and continue. All right, so be mindful of your time and other people's time, 2 to 3 minutes per person. Lana, your hand is still raised. Do you have a question? Okay, I just want to make sure. Please, tonight, since we're going to be short on time, we do not want to do a lot of PCA venting stories. As much as we love to talk about our PCAs, I know I do, there's no time tonight. So we're just going to mostly focus on the topic at hand, which is hiring. And if there is time at the end, we may be able to tell some fun stories, but the point is just to kind of get through the material. So, and then the next thing is there's 3 reasons to virtually raise your hand. Number 1, you have a question pertaining to the slide we are discussing. You have a tip and trick of the trade to offer to the slide like we are discussing. You have a comment pertaining to it, so it may not be a tip or a trick, and it may not be a question. You just want to say something, and it has something to do with what we're talking about. Raise your hand. And feel free to use the chat box if you'd rather not speak. I'm going to try to monitor the chat box and make sure that all is well and good with that. And so to begin this presentation tonight, I'm going to take us off share screen for a second. And basically we're going to talk about this question. What do you hope to gain from tonight's presentation? Alana's here to help me with this. I'm going to be kind of monitoring the technical parts of this conversation. Alana's going to be guiding the discussion. But the first question tonight is, what do you hope to gain from tonight's presentation? If you wouldn't mind, just let us know where you're from and why you're here. I'm going to stop the share, and In the top right corner, there's speaker view, and then there's gallery view. And if you click on one of those, it'll look like a bunch of little squares so you can see everybody in the room. So right now I see 2 hands up. I see Nancy's hand is up and Donna's hand is up. So I'm going to wait for you to lower your hand just in case you don't want to say anything. If you do want to say something, then I will call on you in a second. So, okay, so I see a bunch of hands up. All right, I'm just going to unmute everybody. All right, so what do you hope to gain from this presentation tonight? Nancy.
I hope to gain some insight as to how people are enticing people to one, read the ad or advertisement, and 2, if they're putting a salary in it.
Okay. All right. Sorry, I'm muting some people. Okay, Maria.
So I am interested in finding out what special tips there are for people that want to hire overnight caregivers. That's what I'm most interested in.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Who would like to, Karine? I'm looking at people that aren't muted. What are you hoping to gain from this tonight?
Some tips and tricks, really. I've been doing this a long time and always looking for new ideas.
Excellent, 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 excellent. Who wants to go next? Raise your hand. Nobody? Oh, Laura. All right. Unmute you. Wait, why isn't it working? Okay. All right, what do you hope to learn, Laura?
Well, I've never actually hired my own attendant, so pretty much everything. But I can watch other videos to catch up too. So basically, I'm just here as a fly on the wall to learn things.
Excellent. Thank you for being here. All right, Dawn. What do you hope to learn tonight?
Yeah, I'm interested in learning how folks can incentivize folks to apply for and follow through with these jobs, because many of us have struggles with, low pay rates that we deal with, waivers, home and community-based services that we have. And I just want to know, are there strategies that besides pay rate that we can use to incentivize it when raising the pay rate may not be an option?
Thanks for that question. That is an important question. I totally get what you're asking. All right, Stevie, I have to unmute you. I think. Oh yeah, there you go. You unmuted yourself. What are you hoping to gain from tonight?
Mostly a sense of security. Like I said, I'm 22 and I've lived in my parents' house all my life, and my mother has been my caregiver all my life. And I'm ready to flock out, but I've also heard some scary stories about, irresponsible caregivers and things of the sort. And I just want to know that I can target those who are really looking to care for someone in our situation.
Excellent. Thank you. All right. Oh man, this is like, okay. My computer's being weird. Thanks for muting yourself. I appreciate it. Does anyone else want to share what they're here to learn tonight that hasn't already been said? Ben, are you nodding? Yes? Okay. I'm going to call on Ben. Oops. Sorry. All right, Ben. What are you here to learn tonight?
Well, like Karine, can you hear me?
Yes.
Like Karine, I've been doing it a while, and I just want to see different strategies what other people do.
All right, thank you, Ben. Glad you're here. All right, Stephen Schultz, what's up?
Hey, can you hear me?
I can.
All right, cool. Well, lately I've been using Craigslist, but lately I haven't had that much luck. So I was mainly wanting to learn what sites people on here use.
Excellent. All right, thank you for sharing. Glad you're here. And where are you from, Stephen?
Houston.
Okay. Oh, ooh, a Texan. All right.
Yes.
Thank you. Nice to meet you.
Yes, thank you.
You again. Joey raised his hand. All right, Joey.
I'm just trying to figure out the best way to recruit reliable people, because the agency I use is just, it's really full of just unreliable people that don't show up and stuff.
All right. Well, thank you very much. I know I've read a lot of your posts on living with MD, and it sucks. I'm sorry to hear that. It's never fun. All right. Anybody else want to introduce themselves and tell what they're here to learn?
Hi.
Oh, hey. Jessica?
Yes. Hi. I was wanting to learn about coming out of a facility. Right now, currently, I'm in a facility, and I'm trying to get out to get into Section 8. I was one time living in an apartment for 6 months, but I ran out of money to pay for my own caregiver. I did not have a waiver or any functioning assistance from the state to help me with my caregiving needs. So now I'm trying to function I qualify for everything to get out of the facility. I've just got to find a way to get on to Section 8 to pay for the apartment, lower income based apartment, so I can pay for it.
Gotcha. All right. Well, I'm glad you're here. I hope that you'll gain something out of this tonight. I know Alana is about ready to talk, so I'm gonna let Alana chat here. This is Alana.
Yeah, hi. I just wanted to say what I'm hoping to learn is I've been hiring since 1982, a really long time. I still have moments of struggling, and as the economy changes, we have to get more creative. Unfortunately, when the economy's better, it's harder to hire people, and the economy, at least where I live, has been improving. And I'm still learning from people. I've learned a lot from people on the Living with MD group, a lot of little tricks, and I also hope to share some of those.
Well, thank you for coming. We have quite a room right now. Very excited. I think it's 16 people. So people might still be coming in. Like I said, I'm going to keep people muted. Please use your raising the hand feature if you have input to give. The first thing that we're going to talk tonight about is recruiting. And basically, we're going to start by talking about kind of how it all gets started. Writing advertisements. And Alana, do you want to go ahead and chat about some do's and don'ts? And then if you have a tip, raise your hand. A tip and trick, raise your hand. If you have a question about writing advertisements, that's what we're focusing on, raise your hand. And if you have something you want to chat about in the group chat, then just chat it in there and then we'll talk about it. So, okay, so thanks for letting me chat so much. Alana, take it away.
All right, I will try. First off, I want to say, when you're hiring someone, you need to be really clear about what you're looking for. How many hours do you have to offer? What days of the week you really want to hire people? And where are you able to compromise? What time of day do you want to get up versus what time of day are you willing to give? What's a deal breaker for you with regard to your schedule? figure out what you want first. Second, you start thinking about the qualifications of the people that you need. For me, I absolutely need someone who can lift me. I absolutely need someone who can drive me in my van, so you have to have a driver's license. That's something I put at the top of my application, on my ad. If you are unable to lift or drive, please do not apply. And to make it very clear. But I still get applicants who are unable to do either of those things, but I'm able to ignore them guilt-free. You have to know what your rate of pay is, know the bureaucracy that you're dealing with. How do you enroll people with the employer or the government agency that you have to get funding through? Are you hiring private pay? Do you know how to handle your payroll taxes, et cetera, et cetera? So those are some very basic things to start with. I'm trying to think. When I'm putting out an ad, I found that it's most effective to be really personable. And now that we're in a day of really cheap advertising, like on the internet and electronic devices, etc., it's not like putting an ad in the newspaper, where in the old days they had to pay by the words. Now it's really easy. I recently started adding my photo on my Craigslist ad. At first I felt a little afraid about doing that because I'm pretty recognizable. But I put my picture on recently because I was getting tired of people saying, I like to work with old people. I guess I'm old. I'm almost 50. I don't look almost 50, but I am almost 50. But people have a funny idea about being disabled and being almost 50, I guess. I should have white hair and be lying in bed with a blanket over myself, and I need someone to come help me change the channel on the TV, right? I don't want those workers. I also don't want people who are looking for childcare work, and those are the two types of applicants I got sick of getting. Despite my ad being very personable, I say I like music. I'm an old punk rocker. I like to cook and I go to work, and I say all this stuff in my ad, and that really helps. The fact that I say I live with my partner instead of saying he's my boyfriend is a little bit of code for people with the lesbian, gay, bi, trans community. They're like, oh, partner. So you're using a different word. If I was in a straight community, saying my boyfriend would be a different kind of code. I always think that you should try and find people who have similar politics to your own or have similar lifestyles. So you can put little codes in your ad. I encourage my clients, if they're active in their church community, that they should put something about their faith in their ad, because they might find other people with similar beliefs as their own. You might not want to hire someone who attends the same church as you, but you certainly might want to hire someone who attends a sister church. And maybe they have similar values to your own. I think it's just really important to be personable. Just a paragraph, and then a paragraph about what you're looking for. What are the type of tasks that you need them to do? Does it mean bathing, dressing, driving? Is there medical care? Do you need someone who's trained ahead of time? Do you want somebody who has done this stuff before? I'm very clear. I don't care if you've done it before, because I want to train you to do it the way I like. There are other people who really want someone who's done it before, because it is easier to train those people. So you have to figure out what your tolerance level is. It's really important to me that the people aren't bothered by the crappy TV shows I have on in the background. I don't run the TV when I'm training, but once you're trained, I want to watch my garbage TV, that kind of thing. So I put really personal things about it, and the nuts and bolts details about what the job is. And I'm happy to share that ad Actually, I have to deal with something very soon with my own attendant, so I have to step out in a minute. But I have to sign her paycheck, and I think she'll really appreciate it if I do that. Say hi, Melissa. Hi, good evening. Hi. But that's generally how I run ads. Maybe this is a good time for you guys to talk about what do you put in your ads that have worked for you, what has been unsuccessful, what are your feelings about using a photo, etc. And then maybe after we have that brief discussion, Emily, maybe you can help facilitate this. Then let's talk about where you put the ads. But let's hold off on where right now. Let's talk about what the ads should say. Okay?
Yeah, sounds good. Corinne, would you mind if I shared? Would you mind if I shared your ad that you gave me to share? Okay. I'm going to quickly share Corinne's ad. You're unmuted, right, Corinne? Do you want to explain it?
Sure.
Okay, hold on 1 second.
I have to look at it myself.
All right, there it is.
Yeah. So I actually get LPN services. So right off the bat, that eliminates, makes my pool very much smaller. And they're actually what they call Medicaid providers. So they're independent. They have to have a special license number. So I have broken the ad up to qualifications. These are what Alana was talking about. Like my must-haves are they must have a valid nursing license, or they must have an active status as a Medicaid provider. But if you are hiring PCAs, I would encourage you to break it up similarly. Like if your must-haves and then your preferred skills. I don't write too much personal stuff because I feel like sometimes if it's too long, the candidates don't read it. I think we've kind of gone into this lazy society where there's so much to read, and if you go on too long, I try to keep it as brief as possible, but not but informative at the same time. And then I am hoping that the candidates realize, like, there's a link to a survey. SurveyMonkey.com offers this free service where you can have up to 10 questions that it's super easy if you're if you're computer savvy at all. It's really pretty easy to put together. And so that link is, I think, Emily, do you have the survey that you can?
I do. Do you want to do the survey now, or do you want to talk more about the ad itself?
Well, I guess I can just say now that from the questions on the survey, I am hoping that the candidates will realize what's important to me. And then I do put the compensation. It's not something that is determined by me. It's determined by the Medicaid in my county, in my state. So I just put it out there. And are there any questions on this specific ad that I could answer?
Please raise your hand if you have any questions for Corinne or Alana at this point in the conversation regarding what they've shared. If nobody has anything, nobody has any questions at all?
Well, maybe as we go on.
Yeah, that's fine. And does anyone have anything they want to add about their ads, or that anything that they do? I know Alana said she includes a picture. You didn't include a picture, Corinne. do you think that that's something you would consider doing?
I don't know, because I live in a very small community, I mean, relatively speaking, and I also practice law, and I've always been very conscious about separating my work life and my personal life. So I don't always feel comfortable. I'm already, as it is, I'm one of the very few people in a wheelchair who practice law, so I don't know, I try to keep it separate.
It's an interesting thing, and I actually asked a few people who I hired, what were you interested in about my ad? And one of them said, I love that you said you were LGBT friendly. And another person said, I like that you were really active. And more recently, someone said, I really like that you put your photo up. And I've had this, I had the same concerns as you, Corinne, even though I live in what feels like a big city. It's a pedestrian town. So we all walk around and see each other. And while I'm not an attorney, I'm a professional advocate at a large independent living center. So I cannot go down the street without running into one or two of my clients. So it's a little scary to put yourself out there and make yourself even that much more visible. But I think if before you decide to post your picture, you might ask people who worked with you if that would have made them more interested, or if that would have mattered, et cetera, et cetera. Just start asking people what they think about it, especially in your community with a different style. Corinne, your town is really small, so people might really think it's inappropriate, or it may actually attract good people for you. It's hard. And would it invade your privacy? What would your employer say? Or your coworkers and things like that too. Those are all things to consider.
Plus, she's like the most beautiful woman in Pittsburgh.
Right.
So,
what do you think it is about a picture that attracts someone? Is it just the factor of like it's very personable, or?
I think for me, it made me look vibrant and like I had a life. Instead of like I said, people responded to my ad were interested in doing childcare and love taking care of kids, or they wanted to take care of old people. And I'm neither of those things. And it really weeded all those applicants out.
So I write in my ad like approximately what age I am. I started off that I'm like in my late 30s. Do you still think that?
I am 49, and all of a sudden, all the ads have said, I really like working with old people.
Wow. Okay.
Last year, and it's freaking weird, let me tell you.
all right, Maria has a question. I'm going to lower her hand, unmute her audio. Thank you.
It's not a question, but more of a comment. I just wanted to add to Corinne's profile and say that I also have a survey component to my ads that I place. However, I use Google Docs and their form documents to do my surveys because they allow for more flexibility and more questions. I think you can have an infinite amount of questions if you use Google Docs. So just wanted to let that be known.
I love Google Forms because you can send, I do it all the time for living with MD, but I like it because there's no limitation on how many go out. It all populates into a Google Doc spreadsheet. It's really easy to do. I'd be happy to teach a hangout where I tutor people on how to create a form because I am in love with these stupid forms. Like I could do them all day long. So anyway, but Maria, I don't know if you would mind, but if people have any questions about creating a form, could they talk to you? Would you feel comfortable?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, great. All right, well, thanks for sharing that.
I was wondering if I could show you my survey. Or if you're ready for that, unless you weren't ready for something to do that earlier. But I think the survey is really helpful.
Okay, yeah, I don't mind us if we share surveys. That's totally fine. That's totally fine. Do you want to show yours first, and then I'll show Kareem's? Or
why don't you show Kareem's first, because she was just talking about her ads.
All right, that's fine. All right, let me find, where is your survey, Kareem? I just had it. All right, oh, I got it. Okay, can we fill it out, Kareem? Okay.
Sure.
All right, I'm gonna, let's see. This is survey, if everybody can see it.
And it's modeled after Alana's. I remember Alana shared hers a while ago on Living with MD, so it's very similar.
All right, so name, gender. You don't hire men, do you, Kareem?
Correct.
So I mean, that does lower your pool even more, doesn't it?
Right.
Yeah. How long have you worked as an LPN? Why do you ask that question?
Actually, I'm similar to Ilana in the sense that I like newbies. I like training them myself, so I want to see how set in their ways they are.
Okay. I think that's true. I personally love. I like young people. I like newbie type people.
Yeah, it's not so much the age; it's more the experience.
Right. I think you're right, though. They do get a little set in their ways when they've been around the block a few times. Which of the following best describes your home care work experience? And once again, this is more about that, right? About trying to weed out the newbie.
Yeah, because I hire LPNs, I sometimes, when they're an LPN in a home environment, they have to do PCA type tasks, and sometimes I feel like the ones that have gone from PCA to LPN have more comfort level with that, rather than the LPNs who are like used to doing only skilled LPN tasks. So I like, yeah.
Yeah, you don't want them like throwing a professional fit if you ask them to throw in a load of laundry or whatever. Are you enrolled as a Medicaid provider? This has to do with just paperwork stuff, right?
Right.
And then please answer the following. I smoke cigarettes, sometimes unsure. Now, if you see that checked, what does that tell you?
Well, it tells me to ask the question, so what does that mean? I just ask them.
Mm-hmm.
Does it mean you smoke on weekends, or you only smoke when you go out to a bar?
I'm able to bend, lean, kneel, push, and pull. That is a fascinating breakdown, I have to say. I kind of dig that, actually. I'm able to bend, lean, kneel, push, and pull. Why did you write it like that?
Actually, that was taken right off of Ilana's.
I see. Okay, I'm able to lift more than 80 pounds. For those of us that are a little over that, that's going to come up. Because it's a lot easier to say, are you able to lift over 80 pounds? If you're over 130 pounds, you sound like that's a trickier question.
Well, Emily, that's when the bend, lean, kneel, push, pull comes into play. Because when you're weighing over 120 pounds, you're less likely to be lifted and more likely to be shifted or pivoted or things like that. So the previous question is more applicable.
Right. I am willing to perform light housekeeping tasks. If they say no, are they out, Kareem?
Yeah.
I have a working cellular phone. Interesting. I use text messaging. What does the text messaging, is that a preference? You want somebody to do that?
I sometimes find it easier, yes, but it's not a deal breaker.
I have regular access to email. Okay. Do people usually do the additional comments?
Not usually, no.
Okay. What type of transportation would you use to get to and from work?
Just for you asked me the unsure, and like there have been people who have checked this sometimes under the cigarette question, and then in the comments written, well, I smoke, but I wouldn't smoke at your house, or I wouldn't smoke. That's what that box is for.
And what is that, when they do that, what is your thinking? Are you okay with that?
Yeah, even if they say, yes, I do smoke, that's not a deal breaker for me, but I know to ask them during the interview whether they smoke, they can go an 8-hour shift without smoking.
Gotcha. All right. What type of transportation do you use to get to and from work? You don't really live near any bus stops, so I'm sure public transportation isn't your favorite answer.
Right.
Do you care if they say someone else drives?
I consider it because, if I know what it's like to depend on somebody else, so I know if they have to depend on somebody else to get to me, it's a consideration, yes.
And what are the following categories describe your current employment status? You tend to not give people full-time hours, right?
Correct.
Right. So you're not looking for that kind of situation, right?
Right. I actually like when they say they're unemployed or working only a few hours a week, because
I like this checkbox. These are your shifts, right?
Mm-hmm.
I like how you broke that down.
Not anymore, but yeah, that was at that time.
And please take this opportunity to tell me something about yourself and why you're interested in the job. I would have loved to see some sample answers. What do you usually get in here?
They usually boast their, how patient they are. Or they say some skill about that, they want to highlight.
Okay. Cool. Any deal break comments?
If they don't think they can lift over 80 pounds, yes, that's a deal breaker.
Okay.
If they're male, that's a deal breaker.
All right, I see some hands raised. Dawn's hand was raised, then it came down. It's a mystery. But Nancy's hand is up, so I'm going to lower your hand, Nancy, unmute your audio, go to town.
Oh, couple questions. Being new to the group, how many folks use medical PCAs versus untrained or unskilled PCAs?
That's something that's really varies from state to state. For example, in California, we're allowed to use non-medical PCAs to do paramedical tasks as long as our doctor signs off on it. They basically sign a waiver saying that they're taking responsibility, knowing that I'm capable of handling my care. So none of my assistants are certified. None of them are licensed, though. They're all doing my IV and ventilator and suprapubic catheter care. They're helping me with, induction kind of things, et cetera, et cetera. California is pretty unusual this way. Mm-hmm. And I tried to, and I'm on a waiver that allows me to hire licensed people, but I really don't like doing it. And it uses up a larger pool of the money that I have access to because they're paid at a higher rate. So and it's really hard to schedule and find licensed people, especially in the Bay Area when the cost of living is so high and the and the state reimburses at such a low rate. So I prefer unlicensed people.
Also, I had a question about whether or not people have live-ins that they would prefer having, or do they prefer part-time in and out folks?
That's a great question. What I'm going to do, if you don't mind, I'd like to answer Sarah's question, and then I want to do a poll and see if anyone in here in this room has a live-in. So if that's okay. Are you cool with that, Nancy?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I'm going to mute you for a minute, and then Sarah.
My question is, how do you get around like the lifting requirement? Just because where I live in British Columbia, people aren't actually allowed to manually lift over 50 pounds. I do prefer people to manually lift, but I think I would get in trouble if I posted that like publicly on Craigslist. So like, how would you phrase it in a way where you want people to lift if they can, but not get in trouble at the same time?
In the United States, we don't have the same employee protections that you do in Canada. So, but I've heard this from people in the UK as well. So this is very common in the UK as well. And one thing that you might say is ability to occasionally lift is something, a way to feel it out, like implying that maybe you need them to move a box or something, just to keep it clean in the paperwork. But you should really ask that question of someone who's familiar with Canadian employment law. That's a pretty tricky question.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, here, I'm able to ask that question because I'm not going through an agency, but if I was going through an agency, the lifting requirement, I think, is 50 or 60 pounds. Now, above that, they would have to use a lift, or a lift or something. But because they're independent contractors, they have to carry their own, insurance, and they don't have to, it's an agreement between me and them.
For me, there's no requirement lifting issue as a CDS, the client directed services employer, although I am very concerned about lifting and injuries, just because our PCAs aren't compensated or given any kind of protection or for workers' comp or anything like that. So injuries are scary, but thankfully, I have been very cognizant of that and very clear with my attendants that if they have any pain whatsoever, if they have any issue at all lifting me, that's going to be a problem. I had to actually let one of my favorite PCAs go recently because she disclosed that she was having some back problems while lifting me, and then told me about an accident, a car accident she had had in her in her late teens. She had a car accident, and the doctor had told her specifically never to lift again. And she told me this in a story, and I said, I can't have you work for me anymore. I can't feel responsible if I cause you a lifelong injury. And, I bought those back belts off of Amazon so they could wear it, and have some security. And I try to teach safe lifting, but it's just too scary when there's not anything to protect them if they do harm themselves. So, anyway, all right. Well, that's me for rambling. Does anyone else have any? There's some people in the chat. Someone's asking, Francis is asking Ukraine if you wouldn't mind posting, if you don't mind if I post the link to your survey so she can look it over.
I just did, yeah.
Okay, great. Oh, there, duh. Okay. Let's see. Trying to see if there's anything else. Oh, Crystal, she's sharing her survey in the chat. I feel like we need to move on, so I'm just going to let you guys click on that and look it over since she offered to share it. And let's see.
Alana shared hers too.
Oh, and Alana shared hers too. Great. So thank you for sharing your surveys. I appreciate it. And so now I'd like to kind of keep this conversation going. And the next thing is talk about, sorry, I've lost my presentation. I've lost everything. Oh no. Oh, there it is. Okay. Let's talk about live-ins. First of all, raise your hands if you have a live-in attendant. I would love to see from this room if anyone in here has a live-in attendant.
I used to, but I will not raise my hand now.
Okay, all right, Nancy. Nancy has a live-in attendant. Does anyone else? Has it, or if you've had one in the past and you want to talk about a live-in attendant, please raise your hands. Wow. All right. This is an all right. Oh, Frances. Oh, she's got one. Actually, I should raise my hand. I mean, I don't know if I can, but I have also had. I guess I've lived with an attendant before, so I can talk about that experience as well. Anybody else? Nobody? No live-ins? All right. Top in my world, the top row is all live-in. So. Nancy, do you want to talk a little bit about your live-in and how it's worked out for you?
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay.
We can't hear you, Nancy.
Oh, she just unmuted. Here, talk again, Nancy.
Okay, thanks. I've always used live-ins since college because it's nice to know where they are. And it gives more flexibility for me, you know, in the event there's some impromptu need, you know, there's someone there. But I also have a regular schedule that if they want to spend time away, that's cool too. But they have to be back in time to help me with my regular schedule. The benefits of it, aside from knowing where they are, is you're providing, well, I'm providing room and board, which between that and all the other amenities, comes out to a little over $1,000 a month if they were to rent a room, you know, that type of thing. And then after I hired a person to move in, I send them over to the agency to sign up with them, and the agency just takes them. So it's nice because you have someone. I put so many people through college that way, just a number of things, and helping people. I even helped someone who was literally homeless one time and wanted to learn more about attending services. So I thought it was always a good opportunity. I think I'm going to stick with it because it's been working, and the advantage is we're able to put a roof over someone's head that doesn't have one or that needs one.
Do you find that there's a lot of burnout involved with that situation? Like with only one person living with you and taking care of you, or have you had multiple live-ins?
I have backups. I have a mandatory must take a weekend off a month type of thing. I also do a lot of schedule accommodations, both for me and for them. So, you know, if they're needing a weekend or a day or something, I make sure that I have my backup available to do that.
Dawn has a number of questions in the chat for you. She asked, how do you do it? Do you sign a contract? Do they do some kind of agreement with you? How many hours is fair to ask them to work in exchange for room and board? And is food a part of the deal?
Yes. The room and board includes food and all the laundry materials, bathing materials, etc.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. I don't do Avon though. The other thing is, when I'm hiring them and doing a face-to-face, I have a questionnaire that I use as part of my application to learn about things like pet peeves. Are you a morning person or a night person? You know, to give some good exchange, to get an idea about each other. The one thing I have to stress is that I too have to sell myself and say, would you please work with me? You know?
Yeah.
It gets to that point where you have to practically sit there and go, you know, this is really a great opportunity for you. And you get room and board and food and everything. And, oh, you have a cat? Okay. You know, you have a little more level to it. With the payment, the agency pays them 39.5 hours a week, and then between that and the in-kind, whatever you want to call it, I put a value on the room and the food and everything. So I make sure they understand that. Now for a contract, yes, I have them sign a contract to make sure they know what the job duties and what's needed. And, you know, also some of the living rules, you know, of the house, so that I can be sure that they understand there are rules.
Okay. And do you typically have male roommates or female roommates? And do you find that there's a difference between the two?
Oh, yeah. I prefer females. When I was advertising through the paper, though, they told me I couldn't say that I would prefer females. Yeah. So now I see everybody else is kind of going, oh, well. So now I can go back to that, female preferred. And then I have had 3 males in my life, and all 3 of them, for some reason, just didn't get it, you know?
Now, how often do you switch out? Like, what's your turnover rate?
Actually, because of the room and board, plus they have time to have another job if they want. I have a very good turnaround period of anywhere from, one person was with me for 6 years. Most of them are between 3 and 5 now.
Okay.
3 to 5 years.
Okay, and yeah, that's another good question. Sorry, and is this okay that we're going on? Alana, what do you think? Is this pertain? Yeah.
Well, I don't know what time you're finishing, but we're already up on 6:30.
Yeah. Okay. So we'll ask one more question for Nancy. Do you find it harder to let someone go in the live-in situation? Have you ever had to fire someone in the live-in situation?
Yeah, but I made sure other people were around. I give them notices, you know, verbal, written, etc. And I also notify the agency that I'm going to be firing them in case they think they're still working rather. But it's a difficult situation when you have to fire them or just ask them that, you know, it's time for them to leave. Because they got moved out. That's a lot of stuff, and I don't want them being pissed off at me, and slamming furniture around. So I just let them know that, their time is up with me.
It's really important in that situation to be aware of tenants' rights laws in your community. In some states, it's really easy for someone to refuse to move out, and you may be involved in a very long, protracted process. In communities where the housing market is very, very tight, you are more at risk when you have a living tenant because they do have tenant rights, even if you fire them. So just be aware of that and be prepared to deal with that.
I almost wonder if, like, signing some kind of probationary contract and then, like a 3-month lease agreement or month-to-month lease agreement or something like that, and re-up every month or something like that.
It really varies in your community. It would not fly in California.
Interesting. Well, good point. Thank you for bringing that up. So, Francis, do you have anything you want to say about your living experience?
I like it. It works for me, and it's a hard job to sell, but I do it.
Yeah. I mean, it's something I'm definitely considering for my future. Thank you for sharing, Nancy. Really appreciate it. What about anybody else want to share living stories, living experience stuff? No? Okay, well, let's keep going. Let's talk about websites, advertising, places to advertise, outside the box ideas, these kinds of things. Alana, do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure. I always recommend people use their personal network first. I believe that personal accountability in this job goes a long way. A friend of a friend is less likely to steal from you, lie to you, flake on you. And if they do any of those things, often they'll fess up because they know they're going to be in trouble with your common people. I actually had a guy who was a no-call, no-show for his interview. He was a friend of a friend. He showed up at my office and said, "I am so sorry. I was so hungover. I realized it was a bad job for me." And I know he was very embarrassed. He felt really bad that he flaked. And I really appreciated his honesty. And I don't think he would have been honest with me, except for he didn't want to get in trouble with his friends. So that personal accountability goes a long way, both in good situations and bad situations. So I've always sent my ads out first to my personal network of friends. Former attendants are great resources for new workers. I try to stay away from hiring families, but I know that's family members, but I know that's different in different cultural groups, and that may be very common for some people to hire a cousin or a niece or whatever. And I think you should put it out to whoever you feel comfortable with. Hiring people who you know are good at hiring their own attendants and not advertising. Advertise through people who you know are good employers, and don't send your ad on to that person who you know sucks at employing attendants. Don't share it with them, because they're just going to refer you to bad attendants. Then what I do is I recommend using message boards, using your Facebook page. I use Indeed.com. My last worker came from there. I use Craigslist, so that's the most expensive. So it cost me $75 in the Bay Area for an ad. You can use the free gigs section on Craigslist or the paid healthcare section, which costs more, but gets a lot of results. Sometimes I put flyers up at businesses that I frequent. the anarchist cafe, the record store, the recycling center, where there's cafes, places where people are doing physical work is a good place to advertise. Massage therapy schools, EMT schools, people who are studying acupuncture and are interested in bodies. Those are all great places to advertise. I have not had a lot of luck at career centers at the community colleges, nor have I had a lot of luck at the disabled students programs, although I know some people have. I've also advertised at college dormitories and cooperative housing. So though I've gotten away from hiring students because I'm not living a student lifestyle and their schedule is inconvenient for me. They have spring break, they have winter break, they have finals, etc. And I don't have any of those things, and I don't want to deal with their drama around that schedule. So those are my personal choices. But if you're a student, it may be good to hire other students who are on the same academic calendar as you.
I work at a community college, so it's a commuter college. So a lot of the students that are going, that I would consider hiring tend to be like kids that are working and living at home and putting themselves through school, and they're not your typical, I think the 4-year dormitory student is a lot different from the community college student. Our community college has a second language learners and a GED program. And so a lot of them have a goal of nursing in the end, but there's a lot of classes they need to get through in order to get to that goal. And so I have some training in English as a second language. And so I have recruited a lot of people that are recently moved to the United States from other countries. And I tend to sell my service I sell the job by saying I can tutor you, I can help you with your English. I can, I use that as part of my my connection. A lot of people I've worked with in the past, my favorite PCA of all time, Miss Nemo, I met 16 years ago when I volunteered for Literacy Austin to teach immigrants English. And I met her as I was her tutor. And then eventually she needed a job and I asked her if she wanted to work with me. And so that's how we got to know each other. So Stevie, I'm gonna unmute you. What's up?
I was just curious, how would you go about finding somebody that maybe another student that would be workable as far as your own student hours? Would that go along with where you would post in the ad as far as the type of work and the hours that they would be required to work? Or would it be better to post your own schedule?
I recommend advertising the hours you need. And some people in student situations have the understanding that the work schedule will change every semester. My niece is a college student and hires about 7 or 8 workers. And they understand that every semester the schedule will change. And they have dibs on their current schedule if it's still available. But she just puts the hours she needs and fills the time slots. I recommend not just hiring one person, because I guarantee you'll need people to back each other up. And if you have at least 2, they can support each other and you can run it like a team. So I always recommend trying to hire at least 2 people.
Okay.
Joey, what's up? Hold on 1 second.
I was just wondering, has anyone had luck hiring at nursing schools? Because I was thinking about trying that.
I did that pretty successfully. The one time if you get a really good person who's really excited about learning, and then they start doing their practicum, and they're not available anymore. So it's usually a short term, the maximum 1 year before they have to move on. But if you can get a good connection with a nursing school, particularly a teacher who might recommend people, that would be a great way to do it.
When I was a high school teacher, I remember asking my seniors, I said, what does everybody want to be when they grow up? And every single girl in the class raised their hand and said they wanted to be a nurse. And it was like they didn't know of any other job at all. And it was, but my students I knew were reading at about a 4th grade level. And so their goal of becoming an RN was like, it was going to take forever if they were actually going to get there. And so I've started recruiting people that who don't necessarily, who are not in the nursing program, but are trying to get into the nursing program. And those are the people that are taking usually developmental classes, and they're in their first years of college where they're trying to take the reading, writing, and math classes at the community college. Those are the people that might be doing like a CNA program or some kind of like some kind of interest in helping professions. And so those are the people that I would try to target. And luckily I work at a college where I can hear people's goals all the time. And so I can be kind of like a little spy and go, oh, really? Oh, you like taking care of people, huh? And then, and then kind of lead in. But I think it's important that you don't think nursing school necessarily, but like pre-nursing programs or people that are in line for that in that direction. So that's my recommendation.
I wanted to make a cultural suggestion too. I've heard a few people talk about looking for people who want to take care of people. And there's a fine line between people who are excited about being of service and they have a caring nature and they like to make sure things are running well and et cetera, et cetera. And then there are the people who want to control you and they think that it's their job to make decisions for you. So you might think about when you're advertising and asking interview questions, etc. Ask things that might get so you can get a sense of what kind of person they are. Are they coming in and they're going to tell you how you're supposed to take care of yourself? Or philosophically, do they understand that you need to hire someone to help you take care of yourself? Now, I know some people do want someone to come in and make those decisions for them, but you need to decide what kind of employer you want to be and whether you want them to take care of you or help you take care of yourself. And that can really avoid conflict down the road.
I would warn against social work. Okay, go ahead, Stevie.
Okay, one more question is about college life. Pretty much is I'm a full-time college student, and I like it when a person is available for those hours, as I'm in school too. So because you never know when you have to use the bathroom or something. So would it be best for me not to hire another student then?
Well, do you need that person to accompany you to classes? Are you able to regulate your schedule to meet someone every 2 or 3 hours? I mean, what do you actually need?
Well, pretty much it's just the bathroom situation. Sometimes I never know when I'm going to go. I like to use the schedule because me and my mom do that. Most of the time she comes in between my classes and helps me go, whether I have to or not. But there are days where it's like, okay, well, I have to go before my scheduled time. But other than that, I manage myself pretty well.
But if you hire a non-student, then it's going to be expensive to hire someone to sit around on campus to wait for you to use the bathroom. It is possible to make those schedules with other students. They might not be accessible. A lot of it depends on your funding source. If you want to pay someone to be on campus for the 5 hours that you're there, that's 5 hours. That's 5 hours of pay. And again, it depends on what your funding source is. If you can afford to have someone be on call like that. Otherwise, you have to figure out a strategy. I normally want to go to the bathroom before class and I'll pay someone an hour for this 15-minute pee break, and you just have to start getting better at planning it. And that's really hard when your body isn't cooperating. And some people have to use backup systems like incontinence pads or things like continence catheters, so it's not an issue anymore. There's a lot of more drastic decisions, but you're going to either pay for someone to be on call or have to figure out how to be more regimented about when you go. Maybe somebody else has some creative ideas about that.
I have a couple. One thing that I did when I attended college is I visited the health center at UT, and I was commuting to college to get my teaching certification, and I didn't want to take the bus all the way home to my apartment in the middle of the day and miss class, so I wanted to stay on campus. And so I went to the health center and I spoke to the lead of the health center, and I asked if there was a way that I could use a nurse in the health center to help me use the bathroom during the midday. And I've always been on a very strict regimented schedule. We joke about PMATH, but I mean, PMATH runs my life. I can pretty much calculate how long I'm gonna have throughout the day. But I've also had, emergencies come up. And what I do is I have certain people that I know that are trained to lift me and help me in the bathroom on campus. And those people know that I may not call on them all the time. But if I do call on them to help me, I get their class schedule, so I know when they're available. And I know when they're getting out of class. And so usually, I'll look at this class schedule, and if they get out of class at 1:30, I'm texting them as soon as they walk out. So they're on campus, they haven't left yet. And then I say, hey, can you meet me in the bathroom? If they meet me in the bathroom and help me, I pay them $20 in cash. It's just what I do for my emergency days. I mean, this is like a totally off, nobody knows when it's going to happen, how it's going to happen. This is just a random emergency. But I have people in place prepared for that emergency if it happens. Most of the time, though, I have my regular PCA scheduled to meet me during my lunch break at a certain time. This is only for emergency PMATH complete failures, or diarrhea or whatever it is. It's the $20 pass. And most people are down to help me for that. And I've managed to not have any emergencies in this entire time. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, thank you.
Sure. All right. So how's everybody doing tonight? Does anybody else have anything that I feel like I don't want to go much longer, so I want to just kind of open the floor for maybe 3 or 4 more questions that because I just don't want to keep going if you guys feel satisfied.
Well, Emily, I would like to suggest that the next time we meet, we talk about the actual interview.
Yes.
References, how to really conduct an interview, how to check references, how to offer a job, how to retract.
That was all on the list tonight. We just didn't get to it. So, does anybody else have any last minute questions on recruiting? All right, Nancy. Go ahead, Nancy.
Okay, my question is too, if I know we're gonna look at doing interviews. Do people interview at their house where they live, or do they use another location?
I've done both. When I was more mobile, I always met I do it at my home, I always sure that someone is with me. And I do a pre-screening on the phone as well as a survey application before I invite someone over.
I don't know if you kind of faded out a little bit there, Alana, but Oh yeah, someone just said we need to have a PMath strategies hangout. I completely agree. Although the PMath, the real answer to PMath is an SPC, so some kind of something. Damien, you had your hand up. What's up?
I wanted to know, like, how do you guys, when you're hiring someone, or how do you judge their character? Like, in an interview, what do you look for? Like, if you have them in your house or whatever, how do you, or what kind of behavior do you watch for, just to be sure the person's trustworthy and things like that?
That's a really good question. I mean, one of the things I do is, do they look me in the eye? I usually have someone around. Do they keep trying to defer to them instead of talking to me? So I want to know that they respect me as the employer. I ask them if they want a glass of water, and then I say, okay, great, it's self-service. And I say, if you go in the kitchen, the cabinet on the right, there's ice in the freezer. I see if they follow directions. I talk to them about how this work fits into their life. What are their goals? I try to make it as much of a personal conversation as I can. Pretty interestingly, not that long ago, I was interviewing someone who pretty suddenly, she was very proud that she had lost 140 pounds. And I said, oh, wow, you must have worked really hard for that. And she pulled out her camera and showed me before and after pictures. And it was a very proud moment for her to share these things with me. And then all of a sudden she went on this tirade from how horrible and lazy she thought fat people were. And I was like, whoa, okay. So I pretty quickly, by opening the door to a personal conversation, found out that she was a pretty judgmental person. It's a lot harder to tell if someone's gonna steal from you, which is some of what I think you're asking about, Daniel. I deal with that during reference checks, and I think we should talk about that at our next gathering. How to do a good solid background check. I'm sure other people have strategies. Who else? How do you figure out about the integrity of a person?
Well, Elsa, I'm coughing. I'll let other people talk.
Anybody else? Nancy, you're picking people to live in your house. How do you feel it out? How do you find out that they're good people who are reliable, who aren't going to rip you off?
I pray a lot. I'm pretty easygoing, and like I said, in my application, there's some open-ended questions in there that garner conversation, likes, dislikes, just things like that, and I get a feel for how they react and work with me and talk to me. Usually, if they seem desperate, then I know that it might be another another reason that they're trying to get this job. So I got to be careful about that. I do a lot of background checks, lots of background checks. So, I take their driver's license, the whole 9 yards, and it's really just a compatibility feeling. Can they take the directions? Can they understand, processes? Are they allergic to cats? But yeah, mostly it's just an interview process of having a conversation.
Hey, Ben, you've done a lot of hiring over the years. Do you have any pointers on how to, what are you looking at when you're interviewing people? But you need to unmute Ben.
I'm trying to unmute him. He's not unmuting. Ben, you're not unmuting. Unmute. You want to unmute?
Mute me.
Okay. I'm muting. All right, I'm muting Ned. I guess I'll mute Nancy. Hold on. But yeah, Ben will unmute. I liked interviewing outside of my house. I like interviewing in my professional environment. Like kind of like putting up a picture. It's kind of the same kind of thing. I want them to see me in work mode. I want them to see me as a professional, because I think that kind of immediately sets the course between, you know, employer employee. If I were living with someone like Nancy, I would probably meet them outside first, do kind of a preliminary interview, you know, and then invite them into the home and let them see my personal side of things. But I really advocate strongly for interviewing outside of the house because, like I said, I want them to see me drive my van up. I want them to see me, you know, active. You know, I want them to see me in a social situation, ordering coffee, doing whatever I'm going to do, so they know that I'm kind of independent and I'm the person in charge. So I also highly recommend that if you are going to be interviewing, that you don't have family present during the interview. I think that sets up a very weird power thing, and I think that your family should be completely out of that process. I mean, that's my personal preference. You may feel something different, but I just think that really, you know, lets them know that you're the one that's in charge. So I would husbands out of the picture or partners out of the picture, or it would just be one-on-one, mano-a-mano kind of thing.
I think it's time for us to wrap up.
Thank you all for coming. I really, really appreciate it. I hope you all took away something from this tonight. Please write in the chat comments on Living with MD if you did, or if you have any follow-up questions that you want answered from this group. We will be having future hangouts on attendant management. Our next hangout will be more on interviewing. And I guess we have a request for a PMAth, poop math strategies hangout. So I'll be getting that going. And thanks everybody for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Emily, for hosting.
No, but thank you for guiding this discussion. I really appreciate it, Alana. Good night, everybody. Thank you very much.
Good night. Thank you.
Good night. Good night, Nancy. It was good seeing you.
Yeah.
You need to come to lunch.
Okay.
All right. Okay. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Good night.